Well,
Oh, how is everybody?
Wonderful.
Oh, well, that's good. What's going on out in the real world today?
A lot of heat.
Yeah. A lot of heat. Miserable. Miserable, miserable.
did you see the news about Worley?
No.
He got sentenced. Yeah, I think it was yesterday. Well, yesterday I saw on the news anyway.
What'd he get?
10 to 21 months.
10 to 21 months. Wow.
Yep.
Well,
That's it after all that time.
well, you know, he should have got that many years ago.
Yeah.
That's a long story. I really didn't understand, you know, the superintendent before the one you have now, when his contract didn't renew. I mean, they had him out of the school, but he put him back in on his way out, just as a screw you on the way out the door. That's the sad part of all this. I mean, one of the sad parts of all this is they had him away from children. He should have already been in the penitentiary, but they had him away. But then when things didn't go the former superintendent's way, he put him back to school on his way out the door. And that was just I'll get you moved. Well, but see, the sad part is his children had to get abused. But, you know, it did embarrass the district. You know, it served its purpose, but nobody ever thinks about the harm that it did to the students who got harmed. And so that's the part we don't ever remember. One of the things I wanted to share with you tonight, let me share my screen. I've got an article, and this one is not the person who actually did the abuse. This is one who a student came and told her that she was being abused, and this person pressured the 14-year-old girl to recant the claims of a sexual relationship with a teacher. And thankfully, she's now facing criminal charges. And it was true. He was having sexual relations with a 14-year-old girl. And when the 14-year-old girl came and told the administration of the school, they pressured and punished her for telling it. So that person is going to end up in prison, thank goodness. You know, what we have to remember through all of this, not to get up on too high on a soapbox tonight, is that children are the ones who end up being hurt when we do the wrong things. When we're trying to hide and cover up, or not tell the truth, or worry about public relations or bad optics and all that, it's always students who suffer. It's always the children who suffer. So the person that there in Ames County, that he should have went to prison, and he should have already been there. This wasn't the first time for him. He hadn't covered it up the first time. And it only came to light when that superintendent got mad when he didn't get renewed and put him back to school, because he knew what would happen when he put him back in school. He had two incidents, series of incidents before this final. This was the third time. That's just sad. Well, welcome. I see our time is up. We're ready to get started tonight. Thank you for joining me. We'll go ahead and get started tonight. On our weekly schedule, we're at week 9. We've got one more session next week, and what we kind of talking about tonight is part of what we're talked about is liability. Just like with our discussion board, if you have something as simple as a activity bus wreck, you know, it looks like simple and straightforward, but you got to make sure that you've hit all the notes, understand the liability. 1, call the law. 2, don't talk to reporters. Don't offer your opinion on how many people are hurt or not hurt in terms of, don't talk with the media. Make sure that they go through the public information office. Stay with the student. Follow all your protocols. And even if you do, you'll still get sued, but you won't lose. But that's the big thing on liability, is you got to do what you're supposed to do, regardless of the negative publicity that might come from. You know, I've heard people in different districts I've worked in, oh, don't call 911. Everybody will pick it up. But you're not a medical doctor. You better call 911. You know, do the things you need to do to mitigate your liability. If they're embarrassing or negative publicity, then that's just part of it. But you got to do the right thing. So that's our 6th and final discussion board, is about liability. And it's just, I just used something as simple as an activity bus, because that happens all the time. Bus accidents. That's probably the most common liability example that I can use, because a bus or an activity bus, there's a wreck every day on one of those. And so make sure that we do the right thing. We have our last case study next week. You should be in the middle of that. You should be finishing up the skip. It's due next week or so. Make sure that you get that done. Everything should be in by the 27th, if at all possible, because that's when final grades are due. The semester ends officially on August 1st. I believe that all the grades are due on that Tuesday the 27th. I believe that's the right day. Or it's Tuesday the 28th. Tuesday the 28th, so they need to be in on Monday the 27th is when all grades are due. Anybody have any questions on when grades are due? We got one more case study next week. Of course, there's no exams. We don't do exams, any of that. Just make sure you get all of your work in, all of the skip and the OMA. I appreciate all of you that have worked on the CAP, and some of you even gone as far as to finish the SIOP. Those materials are in our board. Let's look at those. Andrea's got one here tonight. That's a good one. Superintendent in Haywood is on suspension for a Facebook post. Oh my Lord. If you're on social media, you're just asking for a whipping. I just don't understand that. Oh me. All right. So remember, in our class shell, let me move that out of the way so I can see. We've got the CAP materials if you need those. We've got assignment drop boxes. Remember, there's no peer review for CAP or SIOP. We've got the SIOP materials. We got SIOP assignment drop box. And so all these things are here for you to go ahead and accelerate on through if you need to. And then I have put this in, and Dr. Stedman is going to cover this tonight. And so I have all of these already pulled up. And so we'll start with, I'll turn it over to Dr. Stedman. Welcome.
Okay.
I caught back up with Dr. Stedman yesterday, so we're the same age again.
Yeah, he picks on me for about a month. He can pick on me because I was 40 last month, and he just turned 40
That's
yesterday.
Exactly right. 39.
39.
Yeah, I caught up with him yesterday, so I rag him so hard. I got to take my medicine today. So I caught back up with him yesterday.
Well, that's all right. But anyway, just a reminder, all of you did extremely well the first semester with your competency folio. And just a reminder, remember, you have to do 3 rounds of 21 of your competencies. Round 1 was completed. Everybody completed everything the first semester. So you're up to where you're supposed to be. And the goal is to make sure that you finish this semester having completed your complete second round, so that when you go into your last semester, that you're starting fresh with everything for that third semester and not having to look back at all to this semester. Just a reminder, Katie shared with us the other day an excellent document that we're going to use this from now on, Katie, with your permission, because it is a good tracking device that we can keep in our artifacts and use with future students. So we're thankful that you have shared this with us. But this tracking device is excellent for just, printing it off or electronically doing it, just marking, I've done this, and it shows you when you go through your first round that with communication. Now, Dr. Lamb has suggested that you go to the APSL and you find what you need for your competency for communication for round 1, and then for the PSYOP at a later time, and then open-ended. But those are recommendations. We highly recommend you go there because we know that that's where you can find what you need. However, the question has come up, well, what if it came from another evidence? If it doesn't matter. If you can use another evidence and it meets that need, then by all means use it from that evidence. We don't care, or from your clinical experience, as long as it relates to to what you need in the program expectations. Those are just the highly suggested areas, and we know without a doubt you can go into those areas and find what you need. So that's why that's there. So Katie, thank you for this. Let's go down to have you got a NARS example on there?
No, I've got one here from.
Okay.
I've got the one from Alan here, and thanks to Alan for this
good.
one.
Yeah. Oh, Alan, that's great too. Yes.
This one is this is called a Gantt chart.
Yes.
And so I really like this one as well. They both work the same, and they're both very good. So
that is great too. I had not seen that. Thanks, Alan, for sharing that as well. But you can come up with your own. It doesn't matter. Those are just they just found something that worked specifically for them. Those are out there, but you can come up with your own. Just a reminder: first semester we gave you the competency folio artifacts from the 6 evidences. This is just a reminder that you have that information in Blackboard. You can go there, and Dr. Lamb has laid out exactly where you can find certain artifacts, and then where you can go find them, or what competencies they address.
Mm-hmm.
Again, these are in all the evidences. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time with that.
No.
This is just a reminder that you do have that information. The other one is the open-ended, Dr. Lamb. And I guess this is the one that we get the most questions about. Open-ended really is like it is open-ended. It can, it's opportunities where you are presenting to groups, or you're and if you've done a lot of things this past semester virtually, all of that would count. If you're leading virtually or you're doing it, all of those can count as open-ended activities and opportunities that you can use throughout. Again, I don't think, Dr. Lamb, they did such a great job. I think this is just a reminder to them that you've got these resources there that you can go back and find examples of what it is that you've got to do. We gave you NARA's example, what we consider a perfect example last semester. You still have access to that. A reminder that you need to identify, make it easily identifiable whenever you are, when you're labeling them open-ended or labeling them that this is a digital company. Just what Anara did, she just highlighted, wrote digital digital and just highlighted it so that when the reviewer looked at it, it was just very easily identified. You see, she just put open-ended and digital learning. So it just makes it so easy when you're going through. And I would, as closely as possible, I would model after something like this, because as Dr. Lamb and I have explained from the very beginning, this is something that you can use with a job application easily. This markets you in the workforce. So, Dr. Lamb, I would just ask, do you have any specific questions that you would need to ask of us at this time for clarity about what the expectations are this semester? Oh, just a reminder, in task stream, remember with your competency folio and with your internship log, that you only request comments. Do not submit those for an evaluation. You only request comments from your reviewer. And the only thing that you have to do in task stream this time, other than submitting your evidences, is the School of Dispositions. And remember that it takes about 10 minutes at the most to get in there and do a self-analysis of where you are with the dispositions. You can go ahead and take care of that anytime.
Okay, I'll pick up on that, and I'll change over to the author view.
Yes.
And I will go in, and yours looks just like this, to what Dr. Stedman just said. This semester, OMA, skip, and dispositions. That's all that's required in your DRF portfolio this semester. Now, you know that 605 is open. We've already had some who've submitted their CAP and their SIOP. And you can, if when you submit those two, and we have some who already have, you can then start on these. But you can't start on next semester's disposition and analysis or survey until you complete these two. So this semester, you're required to do the OMA, the skip, School of Ed dispositions. You can move forward, as I said earlier, into the CAP and the SIOP. Once you complete them, you can move to these three things as well.
Dr. Lamb, I met with Dr. Tobias and Dr. Massengill last evening, and both of them highly complimented these students with the work that they are submitting for them to review. This group continues to just to excel in everything that they're doing, and we're very proud of you. They had nothing but high regards for every one of you with the work that's coming in.
Well, in that vein, I talked to Dr. Laws today. Again, please remember that we do have the approval to accelerate any of you. I mean, I feel so good. I don't think I would have figured this out if it hadn't been for you folks, that we had so many that are so good. Remember, we're going to offer you the option to take EDLS 730 in the fall and start your doctorate, and you skip 605. You can take 730. Now, you still have to complete your evidences and the semester of internship, but you can, for those of you, I think we have about 15 who've said you'd like to do that. If we have more, we have that set up now. We've got a person for you to contact. We've got it. Everything's approved all the way through the president's office, CAPE, SACS, everything's done. So for you folks, because you are so advanced, I've not opened it up to everybody, but since you folks are so advanced, if you want to go ahead and start your doctorate now, saves a good bit of money. It knocks us, 6 hour credit hours. That's $3,000 and some odd dollars off of your bill. Now, if you're not looking to go to the doctoral program right now, that's fine. But if you are, this is a way to launch into that sooner. Quicker you get in, the quicker you get out. And it also cuts a good bit of the, it's a lot of money saving a 6-hour block course. So, but that's only because y'all are so good. Y'all are so advanced. Of course, now part of that too, and I've probably not said this enough, please remember, we've got several doctorals already in this cohort. I mean, we've got Teresa, and we've got Ingrid, and we've got Chaitra. I mean, we've got some people who already have advanced and got their terminal degrees. But for those of you who don't, you need to think about getting them. This is a special group. And once you got the momentum going, y'all just go ahead and finish up. That's just my opinion. But we've got that ready to go. So get in touch with me, and I'll put you with Steve and Jessica Jones, our recruiter. We're 100% ready to go now. We've got it all set up to process your applications quickly. They won't charge you any fees. You don't have to take any tests. They can use 90% of the materials that's already on file for you. It's going to be really easy to go into the fall. That's going to get you one semester further on your doctoral program. You get done one semester quicker. One semester less money. We're getting it up, and we're getting it down the money with state colleges now. This puts us competitive with getting a doctorate at a state college now, cost-wise. The only thing is, we just get you out a year sooner. So, I'd put that shameless plug in again, but I'm telling you, y'all are just that good.
Right.
So those are the things that are required for your DRF portfolio this summer.
Right. Paulette has her doctorate too, I remember.
Yeah.
You were calling them out. Paulette's got hers.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of people as well. So this is a stellar group. So again, to remember for those of you who maybe have forgotten how to access your competency folio, you click on folios and web pages. It is not inside your DRF portfolio. Let me go back and start again. When you first crank up TaskStream, it's going to have your DRF up here somewhere. You'll just have one. I've got hundreds, but click on folios and web pages, and it will take you to the one that you've created. You can see I've created dozens of these as well. But and there it is. And make sure that you're on the edit content page. And when you click on communication, it will allow you to use one of these buttons to upload what you have. Please remember, if it tells you that it won't take it because there's a character limit, probably if you're using text and image, go to attachment or vice versa. What that means is the media that you're uploading is not compatible with the way you're trying to upload it. So switch to attachment or text and image if you get that message. But yes, you got to put one artifact in for each of the 3 semesters you're in the program. You can put more than that. Now, Dr. Stebbins said something, a great reminder. This is yours. This is a great advertisement. You can use it, 3 different ways. You use it for us to get your license. You can use it if you designate your digital to get your digital teaching and learning renewal credits, and you use it when you go out and get a job. Next Tuesday, I'm going to do the full session on recruit, and I've got that actually under tonight. Let me get out of this. Let me move some of this stuff out of the way.
Dr. Lamb, while you're getting out, just a reminder, my 7 students, you need to send it to me for review and comments. And then those of you, that some of you are assigned to Dr. Massengill and some are assigned to Dr. Tobias. If there's any question at all about that, you need to communicate with Dr. Lamb if you don't know who you are supposed to be submitting work to.
Right. So we've got the C2, C4, and C8 sections. C2 is Dr. Stedman. Is that right?
Yes, I think it's C2. Yes, it is.
You got the
C2. No. I have Ingrid's group. The group.
You got the C8 section.
C8.
You've got C8. Dr. Massengill's got the C2, and
C2. That's right.
And Dr. Tobias has got the C4 section.
That's right.
That's correct. All right.
Those
So,
are the 2 classes I had last semester.
so this is what I'm going to be covering on Tuesday night. And if you look under Zoom session 9, you will see that there's a reminder with the Zoom link to join me on Tuesday night. And on Zoom session 9, that's the 9th session, on all of your shells, the 2, 4, and 8, C2, C4, C8 sections, you have this same notice to remind you that we'll be online Tuesday night and do the interview, the full interviewing section. So if we look under interviewing materials, I want to make sure, I'm glad Dr. Stedman reminded me of this. I want to make sure 5 things you must bring on your next job interview. Now, you don't physically bring it. You can bring it on a disk. I mean, a thumb drive, or you can email it. One of the things that most everybody wants to see, you got to have a current resume and a cover letter, your references, but your portfolio. People want to see evidence of the work you've done. Now, they don't want to read your evidences. They want to see your artifacts. So that's what Dr. Stedman was referring to. This is for you. This is something you can show a prospective employer of the work that you've done. It also lets them know that you understand the evident artifact processes, and that's the way that administrators are evaluated, that you know the difference between an evidence, which is a written narrative, and an artifact, a thing that's generated from the work that you do. But you need to understand that this is yours. You can put the minimum effort in it, or you can put more effort. It's up to you. All we're going to check it for is, does it meet the CAPE requirement for licensure? But you can use it for more than that. And I'm like Dr. Stedman, I try to make mine look like a NARAS. Because, I mean, it's not going to take a lot of extra time. I mean, sometimes we just have people, when we open them up, there's 3 artifacts uploaded. That meets the requirement, but I don't know that I'd be proud to show a prospective employer that. I want a little bit of narrative to explain what I've done. So that's the notion on that. So we're gonna spend a good bit of time Tuesday night on this. I'd love for you to join me. I know a lot of you won't be looking for jobs this fall till after you complete your program, but we can write you a letter if your district allows it, that you might get in on an interview this fall. And so it won't hurt you, and then we'll do it again. We'll do it in the fall as well. But if you'd like to, I'd love to have you join me with the 605s Tuesday night when we do this. Shifting gears here, Dr. Stedman, do you have anything else that you'd like to cover tonight?
No. I think, and if they have any questions, they can reach out. They know how to reach out to me. They can reach out to me with any questions they might have.
All right. All right. One of the things that I want to cover tonight before we move on any further, and we're going to talk about our last case study at the end tonight. I want to talk about charter schools for a minute. And I'm going to click on that. I've got the link to charter schools.
Answer this question before you go any further.
Okay.
Fresquita asked the question. She said, first of all, she said that you and I have spoiled her. What about with our quick responses? What is the average turnaround time for a review from their clinical coaches, and what is the deadline for completion?
Well, the deadline for completion, we don't really have one on you're talking about on the competency folio. It's just got to be through by the time you're through your program. We'd like for you to get your 3rd round in by August 1st.
The 2nd round. They're on their 2nd round.
Yeah, they're on the 2nd round. So I said, as long as you get your 2nd round done by August 1st, and then here, okay, Andrea, I'll talk to you about that one in a minute. Some issue about too many open-ended because we hadn't finished the cap or the style-up yet. We can work around that. That's not a problem. So I'll talk to her about that. You'll be fine, Andrea. It'll be okay. All right. So one of the things I want to cover before we get through this semester is we've talked about funding this semester, and we've talked about governance, law, and policy, and all those things. I want to make some statements here. First of all, charter schools are public schools. There's a lot of misconceptions about them because of the governance piece, in terms of some of them are local community owned, some of them are owned by corporations. But regardless of the governance piece, they are public schools. They do receive public school funds. But now I want to go back and make the point that I've made earlier this semester. This notion that when kids go to charter school, all the money for the year from the state goes to the charter school, and then when they come back to the public schools, they've already got all the money. That is not true. We've talked about funding for all schools, all state schools, comes on a monthly basis. You don't get all the money for the year. Let me do that. All right, I've got that taken care of. So if a child's over there this month and he comes to you next month, you'll get the money next month. You didn't get the money last month, but he wasn't with you last month. So this notion that charter schools are robbing all this money, they're taking all these students in and then kicking them all out just to get their money, that is not true. They only get the money for 1 month, and they only get that at the end of the month after they had to lay out the money up front. So that's a common misconception with charter schools. I wanted to make sure that I hit that again, because tonight we're wrapping up funding and governance piece. So be sure you understand. You can feel any way you want to about charter schools. I'm not trying to tell you how to or not feel about charter schools. I have one of my doctoral students runs a charter school in Charlotte and does a great job. And I just think the world of her, and I go to her school quite often and visit there. Well, I did before COVID. I love to be in her school. Now, but they're like public schools. Some of them are good and some of them are bad. It has a lot to do with the parent and the faculty and the administration. So there's good ones and there's bad ones. But in terms of the governance, the financing piece, they have to find their own capital monies. Now, the school district that they're attached to, and they have to be attached to a school district, has to provide classrooms, but that may be no more than just old disused mobile units. But they're on their own to find a lot of their capital. But their state funding per pupil comes just like any other public school, comes at the end of the month based on enrollment, and it only comes for that month. This notion that they're just robbing us blind is not true.
Dr. Lamb, with my new job, I am now the superintendent over a charter school. I have the only charter school through Communities and Schools in the state of North Carolina.
Right. And I'm going to let I was getting ready to set you up on that one, Dr. Stedman. I have visited Dr. Stedman's school, this little school district, his little school down in Lumberton. Wonderful place, little Communities and Schools charter school. I've been there with him, and congratulations to Dr. Stedman. He's just named Executive Director of Communities and Schools for Robinson County. And so congratulations to Dr. Stedman. But I'm going to let Dr. Stedman talk about his little charter school.
Well, it's a middle school. It's been in operation for 21 years now. It's very unique. Actually, it's in the Pembroke area, right beside the University of North Carolina at Pembroke. Our finances, you're right. We pull finances from the public school because we get the per pupil ratio that the school system would get. We only have 120 students, so you know that money's not going to go a long ways. We do get our pull down from the state for our teachers in the school and for the principal in the school. We get a small for supplies, my custodial help, just like a regular school would. But then we have to and we get Title I monies too. In fact, I'm having to meet with provide documentation that I've met with the outside entities, you know, for us to qualify for our EC funding, our federal funding, our Title I funding. It's everything that you would have in a regular school. We test just like the public schools do. We get a report card just like the public schools do. The difference is we have more autonomy on how we do things instructionally on a day-to-day basis. We have much more flexibility than the public schools do with that. However, we're still held accountable, just like the state would be held accountable. The public schools will be held accountable in the state. We have the same accountability. Right now, I'm having to make a decision, or we're having to make a decision on what are we going to do about bringing students back to school. And I'm waiting right now to see what the public schools is going to do in our county, because we do contract out with their child nutrition program for our meals for our students. We actually take our students over, but we will more than likely mirror what we do at our school, just like the public school does with their calendar and pretty much everything else. So, but when it comes to funding and everything, we are just a small part of it, but we operate funding wise no differently than the public schools do.
That's correct. Thank you, Dr. Stedman. That's one of the misconceptions, again, that I want to make sure that we clear up in a law and finance course, is the governance piece and the funding piece. They're no different. They have they have to meet the same metrics as all other public schools. And their funding is done exactly the same way in terms of per pupil. Their capital, instead of going to the county commissioners, they have to go to their board of directors, which is like the county commissioners for capital funding. But other than that, everything's exactly the same. And again, I want to say, to be redundant, there's good ones and there's bad ones, just like there's good and bad public schools. But one of the things that we've got to do as emerging administrators is we've got to recognize that charter schools are a growing part of what we do to serve kids in the public schools. And we can't have preconceived notions and exclude them based on wives' tales and just outright falsehoods. You know, I've seen a campaign for the last 20 years to discredit charter schools based on, oh, they take all the public schools' money. They do not. That's not true now, nor was it ever true. That was just a backdoor way to try to pull public support from charter schools. We've got a good many of our folks in this program that are in charter schools, and I'm glad to have them. We want to affect the lives of every child in North and South Carolina. That's our job in a positive way. And we have a lot of children in charter schools. And we have some people in private schools, and we want to affect those as well. Our responsibility as school administrators is to positively impact the lives of all children, whether they're in traditional public, charter, or private, parochial, religious, Catholic, does not matter. We're going to succeed as a group, or we're going to fail as a group, folks. We've been divided too long. We've got to pull everybody back in. We've got to get everybody back in the boat. We've been throwing ourselves overboard. And what that has done. Let me understand. This is kind of, I'll get off my soapbox. What that has done has allowed our detractors to divide us and be able to pull support and funding away from public education and away from educating kids. That's exactly what this has done. It's a divide and conquer strategy. How many billions of dollars has public school been reduced in North and South Carolina since 2008, when the economic crisis first hit? That's on us, folks. We did that to ourselves, because we allowed people to, we allowed lies and falsehoods to perpetuate, and we didn't stand up and say, no, that's not true. You can dislike charter schools if you want to. That's your business, but you've got to tell the truth about them. And so we've allowed this division to create an opportunity for our detractors to move money away from us and into other things. And people say, well, Dale, where'd that money go? Well, I can tell you exactly where it went. It went to economic incentives for corporations, for businesses. Every time a county gives an economic incentive, every time the state puts together an incentive package to attract a business to come or to stay, where do you think that money comes from? It comes straight from what used to be public school funding. And so if you look at that over the last 12 years, specifically since 2008, you would be amazed at how much money has moved from the schools into corporate welfare. Facebook moved to Rutherford County. The county spent $20 million, gave them tax-free in perpetuity. They got 25 minimum wage jobs. But their schools district is suffering tremendously. Can't make ends meet because they're not getting that money. They gave them $20 million in economic incentives to come. Where do you think that $20 million came from? It came straight from the school budget. That several $1 million a year tax indemnification that they gave them. Where do you think that money would have went? Public schools. That's the way it works. And so charter schools, unfortunately, have been the stick that we've used to beat on other schools, or we've used that as the way to keep us divided in public education. And then the politicians have made off with all of our money and given it to corporate America, who funds their campaigns, both sides of the aisle. So you need to understand that. I brought up this, there's a lot of things that can be answered in here, and you can look at all the different pieces. I trained this principal years ago. I trained him when he was a principal and it was an assistant principal in Charlotte Mecklenburg, Craig Smith. This is his plan here. So they've got a remote instruction plan. But my point is, many of these people are good people who came from public education. One of my earliest best friends in the business is retired superintendent from Burke County, David Burleson. He now runs a charter school there. I was with David recently. Charter schools are not the bad thing that we've made them out to be. So I need for you to understand that. Let me catch the chats right quick.
The problem is the boards that run them, not the people who are in them working.
That's correct. Dr. Massengill, thank you for joining us. I was looking for you. I'd like for you to speak to that.
Yeah.
Sure.
He and both Dr. Bice are here.
Right.
So one of the issues that I have with charters is not the fact that there are charter schools, because there are wonderful charter schools out there. But if you look at the money, Dr. Lamb has a thing of saying, follow the money. And if you follow the money when it comes to charter schools, you're going to find a story that's not very good. What charter schools have done is systematically fund money away from traditional public schools. And now let me tell you what I mean by that. The per pupil allotment follows the child. I have no problem with that whatsoever. If the child's not in the local school system, then the school system shouldn't be getting the money for that. That's just the bottom line. That's what's fair. What is not fair is this. There are many students, in some districts up to 20, 30, 40% of students who have enrolled in a charter who never presented for enrollment in the traditional public school system. So what that means is you have these giant pots of money in some cases. Some cases we're talking millions in the bigger districts. And in Moore County, where I was previously, prior to going to New Hanover, it was over $1 million per year that we had to turn over in local per pupil allocation to the charter schools, and we had never received a dime of state funding for those children because they had never presented to the LEA for enrollment, because when they arrived at the district, they went straight to the charter school. That's number one. And so you basically, unless the local county commissioners are going to step up and give the counties more, the local school boards more money to cover that fund deficit every year, the school system's either going to have to take away from existing programs, or they're going to have to go further and further into a deficit every year, or take away from their fund balance in order to cover that balance every year. And the county commissioners, they're going to give them more money for that. The other thing that I would mention is this, and a lot of people don't realize this. There's a reason they're called charter schools, okay? Emphasize the word charter. Charter is the governing document of that school. The charters for charter schools vary widely in terms of what is approved and what is not approved by the State Board of Education. So let me give you an example of that. In addition to all their other funding schema, they have a dollar allotment instead of PRC codes. They get a pot of money and they can spend it any way they want to, okay? With different models of accountability than we have to deal with. So again, I've got no problem with the fact of having competition for schools. Choice can be good, but choice is only advantageous when everybody's playing by the same rules. And that's my big thing there. But when we're talking about the charters of individual schools, they can put things in place in those charters that if I did at a public school, it would be highly illegal. Let me give you an example of that. Some charters have parent participation requirements as part of their enrollment standards. So one school that I worked alongside in county required parents to attend 3 parent meetings or PTA meetings or some type of parent obligation a year. Well, that sounds great, okay, on the face of it, but actually what it ended up doing was segregating the school. Because if you looked at the demographics of the students, those parents who could not do that for what reason or another, and in most cases, it wasn't because they didn't want to be at the school. They couldn't be there because of work obligations or what they were able to do. Now, if a traditional public school tried to require something like that, they'd be slapped with a lawsuit and it would be over with before it even started. But charters can do that, and many other things related to that. So, you know, there's a lot of inequity when it comes to funding. They're robbing K-12 schools, and we can speak to the intentionality or not of that happening, but they're draining already depleted budgets because of the funding scheme that's set up right now. And I would argue that it's intentional. Perhaps some would argue otherwise, but I believe it's intentional.
Thank you, Dr. Massengill. I want Dr. Massengill to be clear here. You know that when you start school, let's say you start school on August 25th, that you have to pay, you have to have fund balance to pay for the first month. What Dr. Massengill is saying, because you know the state reimburses you after the first month. What Dr. Massengill is saying is those students don't present to the public school, and so money, the charter school bills the public schools for those students. They want the money up front that hasn't been given to the public schools yet. They have to pull that out of fund balance.
And in some cases, they never get the money. So
right.
if a student never presented, and there's a lot of these in these areas, particularly Charlotte Met, Wake, and others
right.
that have a lot of charter schools that don't have a wait list. If the child never presents to the public school unit at the beginning of the year, the district never gets any money from the state. So the charter school then bills the district for that student, and the district by law has to turn the money over, even though they receive no money from the state for that child whatsoever.
Yeah, and so the problem is that there's some loopholes, and they're almost, and I'm quite sure they're intentional. But now, again, there's good ones, bad ones, mediocre. The good charter schools try to have a relationship with their district. You know, they all have to be tied to a school district as their funding stream, to start their funding stream. The good ones try to do things on an equitable basis. There are bad ones, and I think one of the things that Dr. Massengill just pointed out that really bothers me is the segregated piece of them, where they do certain things where certain parents they know can't come at certain times. But I've seen that. This is not an excuse for that. I've seen that. I've seen that, unfortunately, in public schools as well. and I worked with a high school in Winston-Salem, Forsyth, and I found that it wasn't random or unintentional that they did their parent meetings at a time when a certain segment of the population couldn't come, but that was intentional. They didn't want them to come. And we got involved with a community organizer and did some things, and then all of a sudden those parents showed up. Now, that didn't make them happy to start with, but in the end, it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened for that school, because they were in an area that was changing a demographic, and then all of a sudden they got out in front of the movement into their neighborhood for their school. And it ended up being beneficial. Now, they wouldn't have done that on their own. They intentionally didn't do that. That their community was becoming more Hispanic. They were fighting against that. But when we were able to move them to embrace that. But yeah, you're right. We have people in charter schools who do the wrong thing. That is true. There's good ones and there's not good ones. As all, but we need to understand that they're a part of us, and we need to get together and do the best that we can do for all kids. Dr. Tobias, thank you for being with us. We've covered competency folio tonight. I don't know if you were with us a little bit earlier. We're not going to hold them to exactly what it says. As long as they get 3 in there this semester, especially if it called for one from the SIP or the CAP. If they do 2 open-ended, I don't have a problem with that. So we'll make sure that if they get around in there, regardless of where, try to follow the template as best they can. But if they can't, that's okay as well. We should have given them the pacing guide last semester where it would have been easier for them. The checklist that we've given them now, but. So, let's make sure that if we get 3 or if they've got 2 at the end of this semester, I'm going to be really happy. Because I had a full head of hair before we started competency folio last week with 605s. It's all fallen out this week. So as long as
Dr. Lamb, I was going to mention to folks that, Dr. Tobias and I are working through 605 folios right now.
Yeah.
And so we're getting to them before we get to you guys. So we're not putting you off intentionally. But I've got several folks that I'm having to work with very intentionally in 605 guys. So if you're my student for coaching, I haven't forgot about you. I will get to you before Saturday.
Well, and I'll take the blame for that. We've got to do a better job getting our folks with their competency folio before we get them to 605, because then you having to burn, Dr. Tobias and Dr. Massengill, bless their hearts, they're having to burn the midnight oil on those. But that's because we haven't been hard enough on them along the way, I guess, or choose an excuse. We're having to spend a lot of time, and I'm having to do that as well with the other classes. I'm having to spend a lot of time with 605s, and so we'll get to you.
But Dr. Lamb, this group is changing. This group will change that.
Oh, I know.
This group, after this group, we won't have this problem in 605.
No.
This group has changed that.
Yeah. Well, we became more intentional with this group last semester than we were, because remember, this was put in last minute for CAPE in 2019. And we got it in there and we didn't really have a system to support it. But starting with the spring of 20, we've been much more intentional about this, and materials and following up and coaches. And so, but remember, when this thing came out in 2019, we just put it in to satisfy a CAPE requirement, and it was just, here it is, do this. And we found out even though it was there, they weren't doing that. And so we become much more intentional. We started that in, this past January. But the CAPE year, you can't change anything or do anything. You have to submit everything, and it has to stay the same until CAPE comes and goes before you can start modifying and adding or fixing things. So once we got everything set for CAPE in 2019, it had to stay that way. And so as soon as January 2020 rolled around, we've done better. We put some standards in and come up with some materials, some guidelines. And so we're doing this, what Dr. Stebbins said, y'all are going to change that. The people that get y'all in 605 next semester, it'll be a breeze. But the previous ones, not so much. So we're all struggling to get them through, but we're going to get them through. That's the thing. We're going to get them through. All right. What else have we got tonight? What have I missed? I said I wanted to kind of close out. Let me share my screen. I want to close out with next week's case study. Just some general comments about case study 4. It's about the inclusion model. All right, so here are some things that I want you to remember about this case study. Number 1, do not get thrown by that the case is not the United States. Again, assume this is in your district. Assume this happened in your district. And that way you know what the state law and the local board policy will be, and you know what federal law is. Assume it happened in your district. That's number 1. So I don't want to see any responses of, well, it happened in a foreign country, we don't know how to apply. Assume that it happened in Orangeburg, South Carolina. Ingrid, assume that it happened in Gastonia, Amy, assume it happened in Pumpkin Center. So make sure you understand when we do these case studies, you're to assume that it happened at your school and your districts. And so that's the first thing. So you know what the law is, you know that. Now, this is the culminating, all-encompassing case study. We're going to see things like parent meetings from the SCIP, walkthroughs from the APTEL, the schedule from the OMA, all these things. But I want you to focus on the principal's behavior. This is a leadership degree. This is a leadership program. We do law and finance this semester as it relates to leadership. So again, focus, every one of our case studies so far, the idea was to focus on the behavior of the leader, just like Mary Lou in last week's case study. Focus on the behavior of the principal. That's the shoes, that's the job that you're preparing for right now. Focus on her and her behaviors. Look at the law, look at the ethics, assume it's in your school and your school district, but look at her behavior. What did she do right? What did she do wrong? What did she just not do at all? Remember the standards of malpractice. Misfeasance, non-feasance, misfeasance, malfeasance. You do the wrong thing for the wrong reason, do the wrong thing even though you didn't intend for it to be wrong, or you did nothing. You always got to look at those 3 standards. What did the principal not do at all? What did the principal do wrong? What did the principal do wrong that she intentionally did wrong? Look at those standards of behavior from the principal. And this one, pull everything that you've learned in the first 4 blocks that you've had during this, the APSEL, APTEL, OMA, and SCIP. Everything you've learned in law, everything about finance, everything you learned in our module on exceptional children, bring it all to bear on this case study next week. This one hits every piece of everything that we've done since the day you started with us back in January. It hits every piece of everything that we've done every week. So make sure that you understand that. But focus on the principal's behavior. All right, I see our time is about up. Let me stop my share. Anybody have anything for the good of the group? Thank you all for the birthday wishes. I told somebody I would have taken a lot better care of myself if I'd known I was going to get this old. But thank you. I appreciate I got a lot of cards and letters virtually, obviously. And so I appreciate that from all of you. If anybody has anything else, now would be the time. Again, I appreciate Dr. Massengill and Dr. Tobias joining us tonight. Get your requests in on your competency folio. I think we've covered everything that we need to cover this semester other than interviewing. I'll do that Tuesday night. We'll have our final class and case study Wednesday night. Again, y'all are just the greatest group ever. I appreciate getting to work with you. Thank you, and I will see you. Hopefully, some of you will join us Tuesday night at 7 for the interviewing session. Good night.
Good night, everybody.